It's time for Akira. Shit.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to whenever this video is being uploaded, because I have no idea how long this is going to take to
January 2018 is when this will come out.
For the record, we are not recording this on June 1st, 2017. Just so you know.
I'm cutting my wrist.
I'm cutting you.
Okay.
You will not appear in this video, despite the fact that you're here right now.
Just crop
Hello.
him out.
Just crop me out. I'll
and
talk.
then just mute the audio.
I'll talk. Who is that guy? Who even's talking right now?
I don't know.
Do you hear something?
No. Well, I hear you, obviously, and I hear, your sister upstairs.
I swear, I heard a noise, like it sounded really close. Maybe it was
one
the
of your
cat.
cats?
Yeah, it was one of the cats. Well, anyway, we decided to do a bit of a theme for this episode, and it was specifically foreign films from the Asian territories.
From the imperialist colonies in Asia.
Yeah.
Those imperialists. Screw those guys.
If it were up to me, we would have watched 3 movies, and I'd have had The Raid be in there, but it already took us like 6 hours to watch the other 2.
Yeah, it was really...
It felt like 6 hours.
Okay.
Boy,
Yes.
those movies, like...
Both of those were long.
It felt like...
Well, Akira isn't that long.
So, before we move on, we watched we watched an anime movie called Akira. You might have heard of it.
Anime.
Anime movie
He means
called Akira.
anemic movie.
Anemic anime movie called Akira.
Cory in the House is not an anime.
And then we watched a Korean art house drama called Our Oldboy.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to look at like the different from a person like me. It's interesting to look at the different Asian countries and see what like their different like styles of film are. Because with China, they like to do a lot of fantasy movies and period pieces, and they're the biggest and the most generic in terms of what they like to do. They do a lot of different stuff. And then with Japan, of course, there's a lot of anime but they also do live action movies. And in Korea, there's a thriving art house scene,
which is why you get weird drama movies where people murder each other with hammers.
And if you're watching this, chances are Okja on Amazon is already out, and that is directed by a Korean art house director who's recently crossed over to American film with Snowpiercer, which starred, of course, Tilda Swinton and Chris Evans. And Okja is a bit more of a sort of an East-West mix, kind of like Great Wall. I don't know if either of those are any good. I only watched 20 minutes of The Great Wall, and it was hilariously terrible. And I haven't seen Okja because it isn't out yet.
Was it really that bad? I hadn't seen it.
It was hilariously bad. I laughed so hard.
Kind of want to watch it just because of that.
But we're talking about, we're not talking about the Chinese movies, because who needs Chinese movies anyway?
When you got Japan and Korea and
Indonesia does
Indonesia
and Hong Kong do a lot of action cinema. Like Hong Kong action cinema is where people like John Woo got their start, and where Jackie Chan lives. For the most part.
Well, let's give a formal introduction for the first film we watched, which was Akira. Akira. There's someone in the comments who's gonna be like, "Fucking Americans don't know how to say Japan words."
Well, of
Akira,
course,
with a character named Tetsuo and his friend
Canada. Just Canada.
Canada.
Yeah, you know that place up north?
Yeah, Canada.
That place.
A boot.
And then
it's a boot. Canada.
What other funny Japanese names were in there that we could say around?
Tetsuo!
There was K and Kai, I mean.
Kai. I don't know.
And Ryu.
Ryu.
I remember he said something while we were watching it that made me laugh so hard. Where someone goes, "Ryu, who's that?" And then David just leans in and goes, "My name's Ken."
What?
He made a Street Fighter joke.
You made a Street Fighter joke, and we were all really confused.
I don't even know what Street Fighter is. How did I make a joke?
I don't know.
Are you kidding me?
Okay, the two main guys from Street Fighter are Ryu and Ken.
I have never played Street Fighter in my life. I know nothing about Street Fighter. I just know that you're in a street and you fight.
Sometimes you're not in the street, man.
You do Psycho Crushers, and there's a guy who wants to take over the world.
I mean, the most common people in that game.
Get your hand out of my bottle cap box.
You know the whole Hadouken thing?
Stop! You're wrecking it. You're stretching me out,
Forget about it then.
You could have just asked. Oh.
You're stretching me out.
Fucking ripped up my box. Why is everyone just reaching in to get a handful today of my bottle caps?
What do you mean, no, not yet? You're not ready. Who the fuck are you? Sorry, I'm playing.
Anyway, Akira is a very beautifully animated film from 1988.
Very pretty.
The version we watched was the 2001 English dub.
Not particularly fantastic, in my opinion.
It was a weird dub.
It was okay.
There were some characters that sounded fine and others that sounded like not great.
Specifically, like some of the children kind of made me.
Yeah, the kid characters. Those like child voice actors were so bad.
Yeah. And then Canada sounded okay sometimes.
Sometimes. Other times he was.
And it's like I don't even blame the actors. It seems like when you don't have that much free reign over voice acting and dubs, you just kind of like
do the best with what you're given.
Yeah, because you have to
be a very poorly translated script.
Well, yeah, and you have to. I mean, you have this specific timing you have to deal with. Okay.
Yeah. You got to make sure the lip sync. Well, because with standard American dubs of like anime on television, they give you like 3 different frames of the character with their mouth closed, open, and then halfway open.
And generally, you have to fill those frames like completely to the brim. So sometimes there's these awkward pauses, man. It's ugh.
But in like TV anime, you can distort the footage and change the length of it to fit whatever they're saying. So it's very basic mouth animation, just open and close, open and close. But when you get a movie like this, where the lip animation is not nearly as basic because they have a higher budget, it's harder to dub over because you have to match their lip movements and the timing instead of substituting your own timing.
Yeah, I don't know. I like some companies do it fine. This one.
Well, I'm like the Miyazaki movies have great voice dubs. Where
generally, I mean,
that's because
I think they give them a lot of freedom. That's why.
And that's also because they had the studio, they had the resources of Disney behind it.
Yeah.
Because John Lasseter, who is the director of Toy Story, and he is also now the chief creative officer of Disney Pixar Animation Studios, really, really liked the Miyazaki movies. And he struck a deal with Studio Ghibli because they're actually buddies. They know each other and they're friends.
Yeah.
And then he said, "Look, I'm gonna make your movies available to Western audiences with really great dubs."
Yeah, I'm gonna get fucking Christian Bale to do the voiceover for one of the guys in your movies.
So without John Lasseter, you would never be able to enjoy the great dubs of Miyazaki movies that you're able to today.
Well, I mean, I'm sure the weeaboos out there are like, well, the dubs are inferior anyway, subtitles all the way. But American voice acting is so cringe.
Well, it's not them. All right,
for American, for general...
You gotta stop right there. Let me tell you something, boy. This is important. And this goes for anything, not even, like, weeaboo shit, all right?
Eat a bottle cap, you.
Especially for Spanish dubs, like, if they're dubbing over a movie, because I'm Hispanic. My family watches Hispanic movies.
You Hispanico man.
Or anyway, their American movies are dubbed over in Spanish.
Girl. What am I talking about?
Oh.
Good for you. Anyway, the thing is that generally, the dubs just don't do the situation justice. Especially live action stuff. Because they're trying to capture the moment and it just doesn't work. Source material is usually the best material. Generally. Anyway.
You know, it's a weird case of that. Is I think in Colombia they completely reshot all of Breaking Bad.
They did
re-released.
I don't think in Colombia, but there were some Colombian directors that did so. It was really
I'm not
cool.
sure. It was just a Spanish language, complete top to bottom remake of every single episode of Breaking Bad, starring all Spanish speaking actors.
But enough of that. We need to be talking about a movie that we watched. Otherwise,
What'd you think of Akira, everyone? Was the plot a little confusing to you too?
Yeah.
Am I stupid? Because there was a lot of characters, and I'm like, well, what does that guy do? Why is that guy there? Well, who's that?
I mean, it's
it felt like it was a weird combination of like Tron Legacy, Blade Runner, Tron Legacy because of the cycling.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess.
The cycling.
I mean, that's really... I don't know. I feel like that's a really general thing.
Like Tron...
there are bicycles in both of them. They're very
like
similar.
Mad Max, sort of, because it's this weird dystopia where, like, there's biker gangs around every street corner.
Hey, Mad Max is a really cliche reference, so I thought I'd be a little bit more creative and reference
Tron Legacy
something else.
is meh.
I like Tron Legacy.
I liked it, but I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I don't feel like they're similar
the
at all.
Tron canon, they had the same sort of cyberpunk bikers thing, and then it's like that, and also a bit of Mad Max as well. I'd have to admit, and like
Chronicle a lot.
Chronicle.
I know all these movies except for maybe one of the Mad Max.
Tron came out first because it was in the early 80s.
I don't feel like it took any inspiration from Tron.
You're just saying that because it has bikes in it. But no, okay, other than Blade Runner, I'm saying, like, we're using these as just references so you can get a sort of feel from the movie, like what kind of things it's a combination of. So, like...
And then they had the ending from 2001.
I'll give you Blade Runner. 2001 because it didn't make any sense. No.
Because it got confusing and existential and weird. And then
I'm sure it makes sense to somebody, but it's so complex.
Josh Trank, the director, loves to rip this movie off. There are so many scenes in his movies that look straight, completely cut from Akira. Like the scenes at the end of Chronicle, where the main character is going absolutely nuts. He's in like a torn up hospital gown, running around, blowing people away with his mind, and it's just like completely a scene from this.
Same thing, yeah.
Right? Or
what's up, kid?
You're lying.
Hey, don't play with my phone.
I have a younger sister. I feel you. I like the chum buckets on the back of your car. Sorry, I'm playing Mad Max.
Now we're playing the Mad Max video game.
I mentioned that like halfway through the video.
Get a motorcycle.
Anyway.
But the thing about both of these movies is that they felt really... Stop it! We need to talk about movies.
Oh, this reminds me of someone while we were watching certain movies. He turns on his phone a lot when we watch movies.
Well, at least when we're watching the movies, we're not recording a very long video that I'm going to have to edit. We don't have to edit.
All right, anyway.
You don't get phone privileges anymore for the rest of the decade. But
oh man, imagine if we did that to you, David. He'd be dead.
Anyway, sorry. Where were we again?
Internet things don't count.
Oh yeah, Josh Trank rips off Akira a lot. So does a little bit of Zack Snyder, because there's a scene in Man of Steel near the climax that's almost directly stolen from this. Should we get into spoiler territory? I mean, the movie's from 1988, and it's hard to talk about it without saying...
Should we discuss the movie more generally before we get to spoilers, so that people who haven't seen the movie would have some idea what we're talking about?
Sure.
Okay, so basically, it's a bunch of kids that are in a biker gang in this dystopian version of Japan.
Tokyo.
After Tokyo gets nuked by something in the opening of the movie in 1988, it flashes forward to 30 years later.
Got nuked by Japanese Skynet.
Yeah, and which is just Skynet. So anyway,
see you, Skynet.
Take that, Japanimations. So it's this city that's like really fantastic and awesome and well animated, and it's gorgeous looking, and it's ripped straight out of Blade Runner.
And they have biker gangs on it.
Oh yeah, every street corner has a biker gang, including the main characters.
And it's Paris in the late 60s because students are rioting and everybody hates it, and there's stupid tax reforms and
there's a bunch of anti-imperialist rebels that are trying to overthrow the government.
The government thing is kind of like generic, I guess, but it kind of sets a good scene, and that's why I think of Blade Runner. It's like dystopia, you know?
Yeah,
it's kind of cool. So it's like good background for it, but
but then the story goes off into weird, hilarious
violent,
confusion.
very violent confusion.
It's really
And
cool.
it gets really weird science fiction-y really quickly.
Basically, someone from this biker gang gets superpowers, and the whole plot is that everyone's trying to figure out what to do about it. Him, the government, the rebels, and his friends are all trying to figure out what to do about a guy who gets like godlike superpowers after an accident. And over time, he starts misusing his powers. And it's like everyone's either trying to imprison him or empower him or just talk to him and go, hey, chill out a little. And it gets extremely violent, and it's
like
gorgeously animated gore.
It's like if
really
David
interesting.
Cronenberg did a body horror version of Blade Runner.
Yeah, where instead of robots, it's people telekinesis. And the reason I thought of our second movie being Oldboy is because in Akira there's an Oldboy.
And then we were supposed to watch The Orphanage.
That's why. That's why we watched what we did.
Yes.
So I think we can all say that if you like anime, you've probably already seen it, and if you don't,
If you don't,
I don't know if I'd
you can
suggest
watch
you-
our next movie.
Honestly, if you don't, okay. I understand that anime isn't appealing to everyone, and I totally get that, like, completely. But there's some.
Oh!
There's some.
How dare you talk about my anime as if though there's something wrong with it? It's the most perfect thing in the entire universe. You don't understand it, you American
It's
swine.
an art form, man.
It's brilliant!
Fuck me.
I can't enjoy a comic book unless all the characters' eyes are the sizes of dinner plates and their skirts look like belts.
I think Xavier has something against anime, but whatever.
There's a certain mutual friend of all of ours who I've argued with in the past going, hey, why do you think comic books suck but you love manga? And he goes, I hate the art style.
Anyway, I would suggest a few anime. I'm not gonna do it here. I'm just saying. I think Akira is...
Full Metal Alchemist is really good.
Yeah, it's decent. Yeah. You're
so
right.
my question is that
It's just like I don't know if I'd suggest it just because it's a little too willy-nilly in terms of plot. So
Well, the problem is that
depends.
it's like 80% of a story, and that's because they wanted to do a movie adaptation but didn't let the author of the original manga, whatever, finish. So they just said, all right, we're gonna get to a good stopping point and adapt it up until that point, and then they like didn't really come up with an ending, so they just kind of hard stops right in the middle after a whole bunch of crazy shit happens, and the sort of like extra chapters after it to explain what the hell's going on, or who the title character even really is, or why things happen a certain way. All of that was just left out, so it becomes this weird vague 2001 sort of thing.
So then my question is, Warner Brothers has had the rights to make a live-action adaptation of this movie for the better part of the 2000s, and it's been in development hell ever since, and a bunch of directors have been attached to the project. Chris Nolan was attached for a while before he decided to make a movie with Harry Styles, and now
isn't it Jordan Peele?
Jordan Peele of who directed Get Out was rumored to be attached to it, but he hasn't signed on
he's
the
proven
dotted
himself
line.
somewhat.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen Get Out, but from what I've heard, it's pretty good, so why not?
Yeah.
So my question is that what should they do? What should they do in the live action adaptation? Since you said the ending is a bit of a confusing, weird mess, should they change it or should they just keep it?
Okay, if they were to do a live-action adaptation of this, I'm sure they would probably just do the same movie, but have all the dialogue be less confusing and weird sounding.
And they'd probably pull a Ghost in the Shell. They'd just
probably add in way more action scenes than were actually there.
Nothing wrong with that, really.
No, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that's what would happen, you know? Like,
Yeah.
it's got to keep the audience from falling asleep while you're talking about...
They'd have a lot more music. Like, no, one thing that I've noticed about, like, the limited amount of foreign film that I've watched
Shit at this game.
is that typically they have less music than American films do.
Yeah,
like,
and usually, like...
It feels silent sometimes.
There's a lot of really long pauses where it's just silence and ambient noise, the sounds of footsteps
Yeah.
and the city. It would if an American adaptation would probably put in some soundtrack that
or fill it up with a lot more noise.
it would be a lot more okay. It would be the same movie essentially, but louder and faster. Like because they feel there's a sort of thing where I feel like they look down on audiences a little these days, so they feel like they'll get bored unless we put in a bunch of extra shit to scare them awake. But more explosions.
Needs more lens flare.
More lens flare. More loud motorcycle noises. More gunshots. More everything. But I don't know if that's really necessary. I mean, I did feel like this movie had a lot of that already.
So I guess let's see what happens. I'm not sure if Jordan Peele is the right person to direct it. I don't know who the right person.
Give him a shot. I guess.
What we need to do is watch Get Out, because here's the thing. I did not think he was capable of directing a horror movie, because I've been watching like Key and Peele since forever ago. It doesn't seem like his bag, but then he made Get Out, and that was so well received. I wouldn't be surprised if he did something weird with this, but like, I know it was successful. I don't know. I think that's
right now. What he's doing is that he's working on a show for HBO.
It's gonna have so much nudity.
Hope so.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what
is it called? Watchmen?
Nope.
Remember that? Everyone forgot about that. I didn't forget about that.
I think if you like any of the movies that we compared Akira to,
like Tron.
I'm silently judging you. If you liked any of those movies, you might want to check out Akira if you like.
Because it's either it takes heavy inspiration from those or is a direct inspiration for those.
Seriously.
So yeah.
I don't know. You can kind of look at some old movies and just
I
kind
wouldn't
of say,
say-
hey, wow, that was handpicked for...
Like,
Did you like that scene in Fantastic Four where Dr. Doom's walking down the hallway blowing people up with his mind? That scene's in here.
I'm not sure you should watch it more than once. It's not a movie
because it's my second viewing. Yeah,
it's not a movie I would watch more than once. But if you haven't seen it, just why not? If you don't mind being really, really, really confused.
If you have a taste for gore, and like an appreciation for animation, that's your bag. If you're like weirded out by that shit and like you can't stand confusing plot points, like it's too much to think over. And I've heard people just don't like that sort of
Canada! So let's move on to our other film of the night. And we weren't planning to watch it. We were planning to watch The Orphanage, and I forgot The Orphanage DVD. And before I could decide another better movie to watch, this idiot decided to force us to watch a movie that I still regret watching.
Oh,
You didn't like it?
You didn't like it?
You didn't like Oldboy?
No,
You went into it hating it because it wasn't The Orphanage.
I didn't watch
Nor
it.
did it have a billion lesbian sex scenes like The Handmaiden, which you also
that's what
wanted to
you
watch.
totally wanted to watch. Come
You
on.
wanted to watch.
You wanted to watch the lesbians.
You wanted to watch The Handmaiden so you could just jerk off silently in the corner.
Yeah, that's.
David, what are you
Says
doing
I
back
didn't.
there? And then you're just like, oh, I'm just petting Mello because I have a wiener dog named Mello. You'd be petting a wiener. Do you get it? It's a pun.
It says I didn't.
That's fair.
And you touched my bottle caps with those soiled hands? Josh, you want a bottle cap?
Yeah, man.
Okay. So anyway, we watched Oldboy, which is a weird Korean film from 2000-something or other.
2003.
3 and/or 1. 3?
It said 2003.
Okay.
And it is directed by Park Chan-wook, I think.
Park Chan-wook.
And this is a very famous art house director.
Stupid Americans, you're not supposed to
in
pronounce
Korean.
the K. Park
I don't
Chan-wook.
care.
I don't know. I don't.
I don't care. But this is part of a fairly decent art house movement in Korea, which is interesting if you like watching weird foreign movies.
So this one's a very violent tale of a man's quest for revenge after he's been kidnapped and then mysteriously locked in a hotel for 15 years for no reason. At first, it looks like. Then he escapes and then goes on this long, violent, weird journey to figure out exactly what he did to deserve it. And it has some twists and it has some turns.
Oh my god, that twist at the end.
Yeah, that twist at the end gets you. You're like, ah! We were all cringing and screaming at the end.
Yeah.
Even though I've seen it before, I just couldn't help it. It was
Yeah,
great.
it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Hey, the main I know.
It's...
Oh, wait. I'm trying to confirm it. I'm looking on Wikipedia, but I think I've made a discovery.
Okay.
Do you know where you saw the main character guy before?
Yeah, because he looked very familiar.
Yeah.
Do you know what movie he was in?
No.
I'm willing to hazard a guess that it was...
Come on, what you keeping us in suspense? What was he in?
Lucy.
With
It is estimated most human beings only use 10% of their brain's capacity. Imagine if we could access 100%. Interesting things begin to happen. Yes?
Professor Norman, my name's Lucy. I just read all your research on the human brain. It's a little rudimentary, but you're on the right track.
Lucy
I remember that.
Scarlett Johansson,
when she
directed
turns
by
into a
Luc
flash
Besson.
drive.
Yes.
Wait.
He was the...
yeah.
Remember, Scarlett Johansson turns into a flash drive, and then she's like, "I'm in the internet," and then they plug in the flash drive. So it's like, why did we have both of those happen? You know, that's okay. One thing I wanted to note while we were watching Akira, during the final scene of Akira, I remember David specifically like this the whole time.
The final scene?
Yeah,
The final scene? Yeah.
Yeah, he was. I was like, oh my god, I love his reaction. So
I've
much.
seen
He
that
was like,
movie 3 times, and that thing always gets me sleeping.
Get it up! Anyway, so back to Oldboy. It has some
it made
great
me
fight
mad,
choreography. Did it make you angry?
Okay. Akira's plot is dumb towards the end, because
We're talking
It's-
about Oldboy.
it's purely because the guy, Akira, or not Akira, Tetsuo is an idiot and refuses to take his pills. That's it. That's the only reason that everything happens. The bomb, whatever. You know what?
It's a movie where everything
We're
happens for
talking
no reason.
about Oldboy.
You can edit this non-sequential.
There's a bunch of ball cap in my mouth now.
How many bottle caps are in your mouth, yo?
There's like 5 and I only wanted...
Talk
Okay,
about the movie.
this is why people watch this show, is because entertaining hijinks happen. Why are you always angry?
Anyway, I really liked Oldboy. I thought that the pacing was fantastic up until a point, and David and I agreed it was kind of really slow towards the end. At different points.
very slow.
It dragged. I didn't agree with him for a little while, because he said it in the middle of the movie. I'm like, David, you're being lame. And then 10 minutes later, I was like, alright, it can be over.
Yeah, okay, the pacing is really, really fast and really interesting. Like, it covers a lot of ground really quickly for the first maybe 70% of the movie. Then as soon as we finally get an official introduction to the antagonist, suddenly it just kind of screeches to like this real crawl, and it
An emotional crawl, but still a crawl.
yeah. It's so you know, you could argue that it was in service of making sure that the scenes had more, you know, impact dramatically than if it was edited like an Edgar Wright film where it's just beat, things keep happening. But instead it was like, all right, we're gonna really take our time with this, really slow it down, and I feel like there could have been a little extra calibration, like there could have been a little bit of a shortening of the scene, but overall it's a very well executed final the climax is well executed in my opinion for the most part, aside from the fact that it goes on a little long.
A little? It
yeah,
felt
it
felt like it was an hour longer than it actually was. It was just a 2-hour movie.
There were
But by the end, I felt like I'd been sitting in this room watching this movie for 3 hours.
Well, also because we kept taking breaks to go play with my cat.
a little bit. You should bring Monkey here.
Okay, let me go
Don't.
find him.
No.
Alright, you guys keep talking about the movie. I'll be right back. We'll get more views. People love it.
Anyway, yeah, David and I differed in where we thought it came to a screeching halt. You know what? Before we do that, let's just talk about plot.
Weird businessman is captured and kidnapped and is held in a hotel room with like a fake window for 15 years, except that he's got the television as his one outlet into the real world. So he watches the television a lot, and he fake boxes, and he...
Well, basically, he was training to get out, and
he does other things.
Yeah, but he was like, with those 15 years, he was just getting ready to get out.
And at the just about at the moment when he's gonna break out, he's knocked out and he's smuggled out into a suitcase and let out into the real world on his own. And then after that, he embarks on a quest to find out why he was kidnapped and held in a room for 15 years. And he meets this woman in a sushi bar, and they have a weird, creepy affair. And where
I don't know. Okay.
He breaks into the bathroom where she is and tries to have sex with her against her will.
While she's on the toilet.
And then she's like, if you want to do that again,
I may resist, but keep going anyway.
Because I want it.
No, that's the funny thing. Okay, so the characters in this movie are weird when it comes to just being people, because they're not doing things as typical humans would.
They're not normal.
For example, main character goes into the sushi bar, takes a live squid, rips it apart in his mouth,
and
eats it live.
And it's just squid tentacles hanging out of his face.
Yeah, it's kind of gross.
Fastening onto his face.
Yeah, he eats a live squid, and I think they actually had the actor do it for real.
Oh, for sure. That was absolute method acting. I just did a backflip. Anyway, no, I was thinking about it. And anyway, he just kind of passes out and does some gross stuff, and instead of her freaking out or overreacting, she's like, that's cute, and then holds his hand like nothing happened. So all the characters are just constantly doing things that are out of the norm, and I kind of liked it. It was really interesting and weird.
It's a bunch of eccentric characters being horrible to each other.
It was about something, but I'm not sure what. And let's just say that this movie reminded me of the Roland Emmerich movie, what's it named? Anonymous, which is his movie, did Shakespeare write Shakespeare? No, he didn't. But only because there was weird stuff, sexual stuff in that movie, too. I've only watched a couple of reviews of it, but it's kind of goofy and stupid, and that's what it reminded me of, where in that movie, supposedly, Queen Elizabeth, or the Virgin Queen, whoever it was, had sex with this one person and had a kid, and then that kid later had sex with her and had a kid. And then there's some weird sexual stuff in this movie, too, that kind of...
Okay, but it had a point. We were at first we were like, wow, this is some really intense sex. I didn't know we were watching a porn. And then, towards the end, it's
Although the way we hear it, this is very typical for Park Chan-wook's filmography.
Actually? That plot twist at the end?
No. Sex,
okay.
The explicit sex.
Well, if you watch The Handmaiden, there's a lot of scenes of explicit lesbian blah 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 blah. That's the noise they make. They go blah, 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 blah. That's what they do. I've never actually met a woman before. That's how they work, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I've only heard rumors. I haven't left this basement in a couple of years, so.
Yeah, just sit down here watching movies.
Yeah, no, Xavier trapped me.
Even in the couch potatoes that you're not in, you're just tied up in the background.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty bad. I don't know. I've been trying to get out, but they won't let me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Are you asking for help?
No.
They won't help you.
They like your pain.
They only like Spider-Man, Josh.
They only like Spider-Man.
This is my channel, so they don't care about Spider-Man.
Maybe if I dress up in a Spider-Man onesie, they'll leave me alone. Is that Spider-Man in your room? Oh my god, we gotta get him out of there.
Pizza!
David.
Look, this is the video thumbnail. It's a cat! There, it's done. Wait, no. No, oh.
Take the breadsticks in the middle of eating a breadstick, too. Just holding your
Fuck your breadsticks.
Hold your like
so...
a Whoa. Oh, pizza break, by the way. That's why we cut.
We were interrupted by stuff that happened.
By pizza.
Pizza.
Well, I was interrupted by him, and we were interrupted by...
Pizza.
Yeah.
Anyway. So back to the movie. I was gone for a second. What were we talking about?
This movie, it got really weird and philosophical at the end about, like, what is one sin worth versus another, like, about depravity and what you're willing to do, and, like, proving that one person is, like, the villain's agenda was to prove that they are no worse than the protagonist.
Yes,
In a really long, roundabout way.
And it didn't take itself too seriously, so that was nice. That's why I was.
Yeah, this movie could have very easily been extremely depressing and, like, just awful.
It was extremely depressing, and
but at the
awful.
same time, really comedic.
It had some nice little comedy beats to keep it up. Like, there was
Like,
just
plenty.
some goofy stuff in there, like the guy who's trying to kill himself in the early scenes. This is something from the beginning of the movie. There's a guy trying to jump off of a rooftop, and he's got a dog with him, and he's like crying his eyes out, and then he falls off the ledge, and then the guy catches him by his tie and says, "No, I have to tell you my story," and then pulls him back, and then tells him his life story, and then he just goes, "What the hell?" and then just leaves.
He just leaves him. And the guy yells after him immediately after that, actually. He goes, "Hey, I still want to kill myself." And you never see that guy ever again. No, you do. You do. He goes down the stairs, like, all badass, right? He's walking out. Apparently, he came in the elevator because there was a woman in the elevator. And then he leaves the building. And as he's walking out, the lady's just, like, yelling at this other guy. Like, this guy did something really weird in the elevator. And then the guy that we saw earlier falls down, crashes into a car as the dude's walking away, and just panic behind him.
Or there's some really great, like, there's a scene where he's going, can 50 years of, or can 15... Yeah, I say, sometimes people misspeak. You should know that better than anybody, you son of a you. Anyway, I'm sorry, are we still friends?
The jury's still out on that.
Bum, bum, bum.
Hey, since this will come out in like 9 months, did you guys like the comic book that I wrote?
We're really slow at hitting.
Stop promoting yourself. This is my channel.
Alright, anyway. So, yeah, there's this great little moment where he's talking about how he was training to fight while he was in the hotel for 15 years. And he says, can 15 years of fake training prepare you for the real thing? And then he says, apparently so, when he starts beating up a bunch of random guys in the street.
It's really cool.
And then later on, he uses that same sort of speech in a different context and goes, apparently not. And we were just burst out laughing, all of us, when it happened.
That was really funny.
And it had some Daredevil hallway scenes in it, which were interesting.
Oh, yeah,
Really
there was
good
this...
take.
Okay, there was a one-take fight scene in here that I'm sure everyone's heard of, was the Oldboy hallway scene, where it's just this... It's almost like a side-scroller video game of him just beating everyone up in this hallway, and then I like how real it felt, because there was a lot of long pauses in it.
And
he kept stopping, getting stomped on, or hit, or, you know, like, there
was a knife in his back, he drops on the floor, everyone's like,
is
he okay?
Is he dead? And then
someone pokes him, and so he just gets up, starts hammering someone's foot.
Yeah, it gets like excessively violent, but also really believable.
Like, that's the thing. It's comedic. It's not even like believability.
And he didn't kill anybody in that room.
Timing.
He just beat the shit out of him.
Yeah.
Boy,
Towards the end, the last guy was afraid.
That was the theme of our today's episode: excessively violent Asian movies.
Asians are excessively violent. Wow. Stop. It's okay. Don't be racist. Someone's gonna lynch you for that, I'm sure.
I'm just giving David more goofy things to edit.
That's right. All of your time spent keeps us alive.
I can just see him dead inside. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Are you okay?
I'm not sure.
Oh.
By the way, if I laugh excessively, I was telling Xavier about this. It's because I have allergies. When I'm allergic to things, I just laugh for long periods of time because like my throat can't contain itself.
Hey, Josh.
Yeah, because both of us are allergic
to my
cats.
Did you
really
see
bad.
the cat earlier?
Okay.
He's killing both of them.
Little BB, and then he's got like a bunch of other cats and dogs. So I'm not living well.
I like
Doges.
animals.
Doggos.
Fun fact: I like animals. Not in that way.
Okay.
Not like
and
Trenton.
no.
Okay.
Yes, in that way.
What do you mean bestiality?
No, not bestiality.
That's what he was alluding to.
No, he was making a joke about being a
Furry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you like to cosplay as Sonic? If you do,
How's about
let
that Sonic
me know
Forces
and I'll
game?
tell you my hotel room number.
I'm sure that's how it goes at Comic-Con every year.
No! God, you're terrible.
Thank you. It's hell for David. So, yeah. Anyway,
So, any last summations, thoughts, ideas? to
I
talk about?
recommend both of these movies.
Akira's weird.
Akira, I would say 1 viewing. Oldboy, I would say 2, just because the whole thing feels really different after you know the twist ending.
Yeah.
Much like Fight Club, where
He
it's
was
like,
really into it.
yeah. There was a lot of great scenes in both. If you're squeamish against violence and nudity and forced shirt rippings,
There was
don't
a
watch either
lot-
of them.
There was a lot of
Shirt ripping.
tits in both.
There was a lot of shirt ripping in
Actually,
both.
there weren't that many tits in Akira, but there was
Yeah.
there was some,
There
There's
were a
still
lot
boobs
in Oldboy.
some harder edge films.
yeah. Oldboy just like didn't care. I liked that about the movie.
It was excessive, but was like, whatever.
It took it in a way that was like, this is life at face value. Like, there's this woman goes into the bathroom and pulls down her pants, and that just happens. And then there's like some weird incest stuff, and it doesn't like try and allude to it. It's just straightforward, and you're like,
Yep.
well,
It's a movie that's not ashamed about what's happening in it at all, even though the
Yeah.
characters are. It's a
Totally.
movie that just like is like, all right, here's what's happening. It doesn't beat around the bush or try to come up with any symbolism for things.
and it kind of helps to be. I mean, sometimes comedic. Sometimes
It helps to
portray
be-
a point.
It was kind of had some. It's kind of like how Neon Demon was all symbolism and no.
like actual
humanity.
yeah, right? There was nothing to latch onto.
And this was very human, but not a lot of symbolism or.
Which I was okay with. Well,
It's polar opposite of a, an equally strange premise.
Nicholas Winding Refn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take notes from Oldboy, Nick.
Come on, Nick.
Come on.
I have only seen the first few minutes of the Josh Brolin Oldboy movie, and I was immediately kind of
the
turned off
Spike
to
Lee
it.
directed one.
Yeah, I didn't watch the rest of it. I could just tell, you know what? I saw this movie already. I feel like it was better the first time. They didn't need to make this movie. In fact, everyone just wasted their time having Cable Thanos redo all this.
Mm-hmm.
You mean the guy from The Goonies?
Agent K at circa 1960s.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know this was like a vibrator chair. Oh, this is one of those massage chairs.
So I think before we completely devolve into absolute nonsense and insanity,
Pizza!
let's end it here. And hopefully you got something out of this video, and I have no idea what that is.